This is Derek Moneyberg. I said an amazing live wealth training with my good friend Jake Shields. Click that link right now and watch the replay before we take it down forever. You have a limited time opportunity to learn the secrets and structures that we just shared. If you missed out live, do not miss out again. Click that link now.
Click the link unless you want to stay broke.
John Nolan says, hey, Derek and Jake, thank you both for your time. When evaluating a business for an investment, what are you looking within their management and executive teams? There's a lot more to it than just that. So we can talk about that, but I want to see a manager that says, I'd like to see if they own stock in the business,
That's interesting.
I'd like to see how much stock, how much of what percentage of their net worth is tied up in the stock of that company.
I've never even thought of that. That's very interesting because that shows
important.
They have a lot of belief in it.
Yeah.
If a lot's in, if they don't, it shows they don't have a lot of belief in it.
Yeah, if there's a CEO of a publicly traded company or a chief financial officer, for that matter, any of the top executive team, if they don't have much stock in the company, I'd be like, well, they know more about it than I know. They know the internal numbers before I know the internal numbers, before they're published to the public. So why don't they own the stock if they believe in the company?
They should be buying it up or already have a bunch. Interesting.
So I think that's a key thing that is maybe the most important thing. It tells you about their belief, their confidence in the future of that company. A few other things is like, I don't like it when I see a fake ass CEO, which a lot of them are. A lot of CEOs, they're on TV telling lies. They're just smoke and mirrors and optimism. A CEO is supposed to be just a little bit of a cheerleader, but I'd like it if they could talk about facts. And when you can talk about facts of growth, it's like, hey, when I took over, this is where we are. And now we're up 8% on this metric and 2% on this metric, and our costs are down here and our costs are down there. And we're expanding on this and we're expanding on that. And our anticipated growth numbers are, this, and this under different scenarios. I'd like to hear facts, not just empty words and cheerleading, not just empty words,
You do deep breakdowns of companies before you buy a stock, something that I'm not good at, but you'll go deep into the financials but that takes time.
Yeah, I don't need to be best friends. I don't have to have the same religion or the same, I'm not a religious person, but the CEO of the company can have any damn religion he wants to, and I don't care what color he is.
Matter to me.
And maybe I don't care if it's a woman, if she works hard and she does the right things. It depends. There's a few female CEOs that have been outstanding. I'd say Meg Whitman did a great job over at eBay. And I disagree with her politics, and I disagree with a lot of things with her, but she did a damn good job over there, and shout out to her, good for her. I don't have to agree with all those things, but the person has to be serious and focused and know if they don't know the facts of the business, then what are we doing? Somebody else is going to know better, and I should invest with them. So you don't want to be accidentally successful despite the CEO. You want a leadership team in there that they too are invested in the company. They're serious about the success of the company. I wouldn't like to see a lot of new hires that everybody's new in the last 6 months, 12 months. I'd like to see the chief financial officer has been there 13 years and the CEO has been there 8 years and so on and so on.
When there's like a CEO switchover, will you sometimes reevaluate selling stocks?
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, it could be good or bad depending on the context. How was the last person performing, and why did they bring in a new person? So if the last person was performing and the new person has expertise in turning things around, that's generally a good sign. They have to have expertise in that same. They have to know something about that niche, etc. But good sign overall. Good sign overall. So yeah, those are a couple of thoughts that I would encourage you to think about. Neil, what up, Neil? Neil says, hey, Derek, great event. Always learn more about the world and myself when I go. You and Jake are awesome in going through physical punishment and fatigue of both mental and physical variety. Is your ability to withstand this fatigue mostly from repeated exposure, like how your body now works around the bruising and developing around the bruising during MMA. So he's saying, I made a comment that if you practice martial arts long enough, you're not too sensitive or you don't bruise too easily.
Your body gets tough up. It's also mental though. I think you go through fatigue because mentally you're tough, but your body definitely toughens up too, like your shins, your everything. Things don't hurt as bad.
Yeah.
But you have to have that mental drive of just being like, oh, this sucks, but I'm going to keep going. Or, doing talks all night when you're tired. It's just, you have that mental focus. I'm just going to do it.
I think one episode of that toughness that, if you don't mind talking about, but I think your Dan Henderson fight is a great example of that. That was a tough fight.
That was, that was back. I was a huge win streak. I think like 13, 14 fight win streak. I went to fight Dan Henderson. He left the UFC. That was after he was on a big win streak, knocked out Bitsby. I moved up to weight to fight him. I was like a 4-1 underdog, and that really pissed me off because it was such a good win streak. But then I walked in there and just walked right into the famous H-bomb, they call it, that overhand right, and he just dropped me. So I was floored. I get up a little dazed, fight, and then he dropped me again with an uppercut. And it was just, I was hurt pretty bad, to be honest, but I was just so determined at that point in my life. I was willing to die because I had sacrificed everything. It was a huge title fight, live on CBS. I was just so determined to win. So those are situations, it's just that pure mental toughness where you dig deep. Like I said, I could barely see, double vision, but I was thinking just keep moving, so the ref doesn't stop it. Towards the end of the round, I started to get my vision back, started being able to see. And after that came in and just dominated, a 5-round fight, just completely dominated Henderson, which is, Henderson knocked out Fedor. He's one of the greats of the sport. So that was, but it took a lot to get just flattened by Henderson twice and keep fighting. That's not an easy feat to do.
No, he's a tough man. I met the man. He's a super tough guy, and as you say, a legend in the sport. That he fought a lot of guys that are bigger than him and won, and he beat up a lot of tough guys. And you got cracked hard a couple of times, but back up and back at it.
No, exactly. It was just at that point in my life, I was like, there's no way I'm losing this fight. I have to be out totally cold or dead. And that's the attitude you have to have sometimes when you want to be successful. You have to have that attitude of like, I'm going to make this work. What was the saying? The guy who crossed the Alps, he'll find a way or make.
Yeah, Hannibal Barca said, I shall find a way or make one. I shall find a way or make one, which I think is one of the most gangster, badass things. If you know who that man is and how he lived his life, for him to say that is basically to say that I will do my research and learn how someone has accomplished this goal before me. And if no one has ever accomplished this goal before me, I'll invent a way and I'll still accomplish my goal.
Yeah, and he crossed the Alps with like elephants in an army. He came in, it was up the Roman Empire for years. Did he ever lose a battle? I think if he kind of
when they had traditional front-facing confrontations, he beat the shit out of them. He beat them so embarrassingly that the Senate ordered the army to not confront them. They tried to do a lot of containment strategies because they had, I think, 3 battles where he just decimated their army.
Now it's by far the world's most powerful government, supposed to be the most powerful military.
Yeah.
And he made a way since he couldn't find one.
Yeah. I shall find a way or make one. So yeah, he stayed there, I think, 13 years menacing them. His whole life was about that. That's how he spent his whole life, is menacing the Romans.
We know his name, though.
But
that applies to like all walks of life, business, everything. It's like I get determined. If I'm really determined to do something, I do it. Now, sometimes there's things I'm not that determined in life, and maybe I don't accomplish it because I don't make it a point. But if I decide to be successful with something, I become successful at it. I know you're the same way.
Success is a commitment. Success is a decision, and then a daily commitment to that decision.
That's really important. It's a daily commitment to the same things over and over. And you want to get good at jiu-jitsu, but you also understood it wasn't going to happen. You had to every day go and do it over, long periods of time, long workouts. Yeah, things don't just happen. You have to put in effort, and it has to be consistency. I think that's the biggest thing people don't have. They'll work hard for a month or 2 months. They have these bursts and they disappear. But it's like, no, you go day and just over and over. And that's how you become consistent.
The context that you and I spent the most time, where you're the guy in charge, is fighting, is MMA. Not just jiu-jitsu, but MMA. Yeah. And people think...
Yeah, true MMA training too.
People talk about, his black belt. Well, I don't just have a black belt. I also have 2/3 of the way to my black belt in my striking as well, under Lyoto Machida and Glover Teixeira.
Two former UFC champions, 2 greats.
Yeah, superheroes. So, I have, belt number 6 out of 9, the 9th being my black belt in their Kempo system. And Kempo is a tradition that Chuck Liddell had his Kempo black belt. Glover Teixeira has his black belt in Kempo, also under the same man. And Hackelman is the guy that created that system. You can say whatever about Hackelman, but Hackelman had a lot of champions and bad came out of there.
Like, I know karate gets mocked a lot, but these are like these are two of the best karate people in the world. This is the real karate, the karate that actually works. I think karate got kind of turned into katas and stuff, but real traditional karate, Lyoto Machida proved it was real. I mean, Hackelman proved it can work.
So the question I was going to ask is that, not only did I work on jiu-jitsu, but I'm a pretty damn well-rounded MMA fighter today and getting better. But the black belt in jiu-jitsu in 3 years and 7 months, all the people that trained with me, they know, they were here, we did it, we're still doing it, we're still working together. But explain what's necessary, like the work ethic or the level of dedication, like how many people do that type of thing? I mean, maybe just describe a little of the gritty, a little of the detail. You made a comment to me that you thought I would quit,
Yeah, no, just the level you're training at, it's so rare to get, like BJ Penn got one, I think, quicker. He congratulated you. That's what's funny, because everyone was, he sent out a tweet congratulating you. But it's just the amount of work and effort, it's just hour after hour. Like when I started training with you, I'm like, this guy's rich. Especially if you're training in a very unusual way. You weren't bringing in other people that were new. You were training all with like elite world champions. So the first year, you were just getting the shit beat out of you.
It was.
You know, the funny story when Chuck Liddell came in after he hadn't slept for a weekend, and Chuck is just rough, just the way he is. He's just physical, strong. So you're in there just getting roughed up. You're sitting there thinking like, I'm rich. Why am I doing this? But you said that's when you really committed, like, oh, I'm going to get this black belt. And then you just, I could just see the change, just how serious you were. Because the first few months, I'm like, is this guy going to stick with it? It's a tough sport. I don't know, like, why we do this. I don't know, something's wrong with us. But it does feel good to beat the crap out of people. And now your MMA skills, like last night, you were doing a drill where I went for a takedown. You had this really nice arm pull up you learned from Chuck, turn, knee, then you could elbow if I block the knee. It's not just jiu-jitsu. You're having high level like MMA sequences,
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I wanted to be good at self-defense, so I didn't want to learn an element of fighting. I wanted to learn how to be a great fighter, and I wanted to have high-level self-defense. Not because I wanted to be a professional fighter, but I mentioned a couple times I've been a world traveler. I love being a world traveler, and I don't think it's realistic that an old man is going to be able to protect or defend himself if he doesn't have some serious training. That when you're me or you, either of us, 20 years from now, we're going to be in our mid-60s, and a guy that doesn't have any training is going to have a tough time fighting a couple of young men if you're in your mid-60s. And I would argue, I'm always very inspired when I see an old man punch somebody on an Instagram video or something. I always find it very inspiring. You see one of these old boxer guys, and
Yeah,
and like 3 young guys will run away.
It'd be nice to be old and still able to beat ass.
Yeah. So if I'm 65 and keep myself in decent physical shape, that avoid injuries and maintain my strength,
I'll still whoop
somebody's ass, no problem, and you will too.
No, exactly. I think in 20 years I'll still f most young people.
I think that's true. If we look at the older guys, Hoist Gracie is 59 right now. Shout out to Hoist. Chuck is in the second half of his 50s now, I believe, 55, 56.
But he'll still maul people.
Chuck, they don't know how tough he is.
Person,
they don't know how tough he is. They don't know. A guy like Don Fry. Don Fry is in his early 60s, I believe. Don Fry had a conflict recently and knocked a man unconscious.
I missed that. Is that a video of that?
Yeah, it's a real thing.
I'm gonna look that up. That's funny.
Yeah, a guy attacked him at the fights. He was at an event, and a guy insulted him, which and then smacks the head off his head, and is talking crazy to him. And Don smacked it one time, hit him one time, dropped him.
Yeah. Don Fry has a famous fight in Pride with this giant Japanese guy and him. They're just trading shots. Not the brightest, but it just shows how tough they are. They're literally just trading shot for shot.
This is Derek Moneyberg. Jay Shields and I just did an amazing live wealth training. We're going to change a lot of people's lives. We're going to change the lives of their children. Your children don't have to have crooked teeth. They can have sporting equipment. They can have the best coaches, the best teachers. They don't have to be made fun of in school like some of you were. If you missed out live, do not miss out again. Click that link now.
Click the link, unless you want to stay broke.